The United States should have done far more to help Brexiteers, according to Donald Trump's former national security advisor. John Bolton reveals in a highly controversial memoir of his time in the White House that almost no one in the administration seemed to care about the fate of Brexit with the exception of the president and himself. He describes Mr. Trump's July 2018 visit to the UK, which got off to a rocky start with the publication of an interview in which the president criticised then Prime Minister Theresa May's plan for Brexit and said she had rejected his advice on how to strike a deal with the EU. Mr. Bolton writes that Mr. Trump was basically trashing May's Brexit strategy. He adds that he thought the strategy was in free fall anyway. Writing in the room where it happened, a book the U.S. Justice Department has tried to stop being published, Mr. Bolton states that the implementation of the 2016 vote to leave the EU was disastrously mishandled, thereby threatening political stability in Britain itself. He writes, "We should have been doing far more to help the Brexiteers, and I certainly tried. Unfortunately, apart from Trump and myself, almost no one in the administration seemed to care. What a potential tragedy." Widely seen as a foreign policy hawk, Mr. Bolton underscores the importance of Brexit to the US. Brexit was an existential issue for the UK, but it was also critically important to the US, he writes. Brexit's fundamental impetus was the accelerating loss of citizen control over the Brussels-based mechanisms of the European Union. Bureaucracies were making rules that national parliaments had to accept as binding, and the loss of democratic sovereignty was increasingly palpable. Mr. Bolton compares Brussels to King George III, the British monarch who lost control of the American colonies. He argues that a majority of the Brits came to see Brussels as an unaccountable, oppressive machine. He says that Mr. Trump went out of his way to tamp down the firestorm caused by his interview and records that he praised the UK's relationship with the US as the highest level of special. At Sandhurst, Mr. Trump and Mrs. May watched US and UK special forces demonstrating how they would take down a terrorist camp.